everybody, I'm Cody Katastrophic, and welcome to episode 2 of Interviews with a Vampire. That's me, the vampire, and I am interviewing people just like you from all walks of life. And today, I would like to welcome a very special guest, the lovely Clio Cadence.
Hi, we here with a vampire.
So, Clio, I know this. We've known each other a few years, obviously. Just tell me about yourself. What do you do?
Well, I am a singer, musician, and I just like to have fun.
Cool. All right, so obviously we all have stage names. Cody Katastrophic, Clio Cadence, right? Where'd the name come from?
Well, a lot of people think that Clio is a stage name, but Clio is actually my real name.
Mm-hmm.
Cadence, I got because I was looking for something to add on to Clio,
Mm-hmm.
and Cadence is, got the beat, and
It's
also,
musical.
It's musical.
Yeah.
And you have the 2 C's like Chanel.
You know what's funny is when I was coming up with my stage name, I actually wanted to avoid the 2 C's.
Yeah.
Because I was going to be Cody Katastrophic, which does start with a C. But when I was, again, I was like 17 or 18. Black Veil Brides was this super huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the members of Black Veil Brides, his name is Cece, because it was Christian Coma.
Oh.
And I did not want that. I didn't want everybody to be like, oh, he's copying Black Veil Brides. So I was like, no, fuck it. K. Catastrophic with a K.
I like it.
So I love it. It's completely the opposite. Obviously, you're a little younger than me. So what would you say the background for your music is? Like, you grew up a little bit differently than I did. We've talked. Audience doesn't know how you grew up. So how does that play into what you do?
Well, my parents were always like super supportive of my music. And I grew up listening with my dad to like AC/DC and Evanescence.
Oh, yeah.
And ever since I was like a little kid, I was like, I just want to be a rock star. I want to be in a band. And so those bands always like have been in my heart. And I guess like in high school, I would listen to a lot of No Doubt. I love No Doubt.
I can see that, absolutely.
And now, like, I have more heavier influences that I like to listen to. I love the band The Pretty Reckless because I like how, like, I love a good, like, heavy instrumentals and more melodic vocals.
Taylor's very good, too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen them live, but one of the last concerts I was at was the Pretty Reckless opening. And I cared more about the opening band than I did the headline. I think it was like, well, I'm not going to say who it was, doesn't matter. But, and her stage presence, too. Holy cow.
So good.
She is very, very talented.
Yes.
I see why, yeah. So we're gonna roll back a little bit. What is it about Gwen Stefani that speaks to you? Because I kind of feel like I hear different things when people talk about Gwen Stefani. I always just kind of thought she was like this super edgy bad bitch, and that's what I always thought was so fucking cool.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she's a badass.
Totally.
From the way she does her vocals, I feel like our voices are similar in tone. And so I feel like I could like connect to her music in that way. And also like I love her style. And the way she performs. It's like this like female badass, like, don't fuck with me, bitch kind of thing. And I think it's awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. So you said like when you were growing up, you were listening to like a lot of AC/DC and stuff like that. I feel like I listened to a lot of the same bands, and then somehow I still ended up like clear in like a completely other field as some of the music I listened to. Like, so I remember growing up, my dad was listening to stuff like Weird Al Yankovic, and then Marty Robbins like gunfighter ballads. So there's like this this whole plethora of like different stuff that I was hearing and listening to. And then somehow I ended up in fucking techno for like ever until this goth girl made me a CD when I was in like the 7th grade.
Okay.
And then I was like, oh my God, rock music exists. I'd forgotten all about rock music. So like all that 80s and stuff my dad had been playing, it was just gone. And then there was like a lot of rap and stuff like that, you know, when I was younger. So for me, like my influences are kind of like all over the place. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love that we both like Pretty Reckless is like a really huge one for me. I had somebody show me that band like, I don't know, like 2016, and they were showing me, I think it was Heaven Knows.
So good.
Yeah, that was the first song I heard by them. And then I kept listening, and I kept just like listening and kept listening. Like every song is just a banger. I don't know how the hell Taylor does it. Like I wish I felt like I could do that.
You definitely, all your songs are so amazing.
You're so sweet.
If y'all haven't checked out Cody on Spotify, you need to.
You're a sweetheart. Actually, speaking of Spotify and music, tell me about your first single, Drive. 1 million? Is that what it was?
Yes.
I remember that. I remember the post. 1 million streams on Spotify. That was intense. See, you know, the audience, again, you guys don't know this, but I followed Clio before Clio was Clio Cadence. You were a member of a different band, right?
Yes, I had a band called Love Past Blue, and eventually I became a solo act as Clio Cadence. And my first single that dropped is called Drive, and it's about like picking yourself up again after you've been knocked down. Mm-hmm. Which I feel like I've experienced multiple times in my life.
Absolutely.
Everyone goes through stuff, and it's really hard to like just move forward after something happens. And you know, sometimes you just gotta keep going, and that's what the song's about, which was meaningful to me. Mm-hmm. And one day I just like looked at Spotify, just, you know, checking on like, are my songs still up posted and everything? And it's like, oh my gosh, like it has up. 1 million views.
Yeah, you blew up.
And I was like, whoa, 1 million streams on Spotify, like how? Mm-hmm. And I guess it had gotten added to a Spotify curated playlist called Metal Queens, I think.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh my gosh. It was just like mind blowing. I was freaking out. I called Zach and I was like, babe, you will never believe what I'm seeing right now. And that night we went out to this like Greek restaurant, and he had the waiters and waitresses come out with this giant platter of desserts.
Oh, I love it.
And they had sparklers, and they're all like 1 million streams. It was awesome.
Hey, boyfriend of the year right there.
Yeah.
I love it. Actually reminds me too. So I remember it was last year at NAMM, did the same thing. We were celebrating your single releasing, and we went out to eat and did the whole thing, right? But we didn't get sparklers or streamers that time, so that's okay. But we celebrated.
Yes. I mean, I feel like life is about celebrating. You always have to celebrate. Even like having Cody here in Nashville, Cody and Mariel, like they're some of our closest friends, and I'm like, this is a celebration in itself. Having y'all here in Nashville.
Being here is absolutely a celebration, darling. It's absolutely fantastic. It's beyond words. Hospitality. They talk about Southern hospitality, and I'm gonna tell you, I lived in the South, and it's a real thing. It really is. Yeah, you guys are fantastic, and I think that you could go an entire lifetime and never encounter people as fantastic or as talented as you and Zach. It's seriously, it's fantastic.
We definitely 100% feel the same way about y'all.
You guys are so sweet. So I'm going to circle back to Drive, though. you have a music video for that, and that music video, honestly, like that spoke to me. I thought that was really cool. So, you know, obviously, for those who haven't seen the music video, it kind of seems indicative a little bit of maybe like a relationship not going so well. Was that kind of the impression there?
Yeah. So the song has multiple meanings for me
Sure.
because, in general, it's about picking yourself back up. And when I first wrote the song, it was about this guy that literally pushed me into the street. And and so I was like, what do I want this music video to be? Because there's so many different directions. So we end up going with a boyfriend, figure, like having a drinking problem and not being there for me, starting to be abusive, and the concept of like, I'm not going to deal with this anymore, drive away.
That was a beautifully shot video too.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So did you come up with the idea of the video, or was it the videographer?
Yeah, me and Zachary, the videographer, we collaborated on putting it all together.
Okay.
And Michael Vampire directed it, and it was awesome. Jonathan Kane was the actor in the music video. And
he was fantastic.
He was awesome to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice guy.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the music video. So, I asked because, again, my first single, Where My Demons Hide, there's definitely a meaning in that song as well. But I think for me, like, the music video does not always have to line up necessarily. Sometimes it can cheat a little bit, going back to like the Pretty Reckless, they had a song that they did that with. I don't recall the exact song off the top of my head, but the music video was like Mary Magdalene after Jesus had been like crucified and all that stuff. But the meaning of the song was absolutely nothing to do with that at all. You know what I mean? There's artistic license and all that. So with Where My Demons Hide, we have a lot of things we're working on with that. And they're not necessarily the original intent in the song, I think. There is a lot of it. When I said Where My Demons Hide, what I was really talking about is kind of like the skeletons in your closet, or the thing you're the most insecure about. There's a lot of people out there who are maybe embarrassed about their sexuality. That's a big one nowadays, obviously. That's a great example of something where it's like, man, I wish I could reveal that to people. Or another big one is like, I wish I had the courage to ask this girl out, or this boy out, or or whatever the case is. And so when it comes to things like that, I had this thought of like, if you don't know, you have to try, and then you'll know the answer. So there's a line in the song that says, I'll never know if I never try. But I had the thought that in that song, the person I was thinking of, it wasn't necessarily me, but it was somebody who chose never to actually do the right thing. They chose not to ask the girl. They chose not to reveal the secret part of them or whatever. So it doesn't work out for them. And so that's kind of message in that song. Obviously, Cleo, you and I have talked. There's some deeper meanings in that song for me as well, relating to like my biological father and things. But there's a whole lot of things that I feel like if you just touch on, but you let the audience kind of find their way. And I think that's what's great about Drive. Drive kind of tells you to just pick yourself up and just keep going. Leave the rest in the rearview mirror, kind of.
And one thing I love about music is that it's art and it's expression, and any listener can put their own interpretation to it.
Oh, sure.
So it's like, especially music I listen to, I'm sure the composer had a certain idea in mind of what that means to them.
Mm-hmm.
But when I listen to it, I relate the song to what I'm going through at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think that's why like music is such a universal language, because we all can like listen to something and relate it to our experiences and our feelings. And I think that that's like such a great thing.
Absolutely. It's been that way since the dawn of time. One of my greatest inspirations, which I told my last guest actually, is Beethoven.
Okay.
Beethoven was this fantastic composer. I mean, he wasn't a Mozart, but that's the problem, is he was constantly comparing himself to Mozart. His father wanted him to be Mozart, so he beat him, mercilessly. He'd lie about his age to try to like hype him up, right? And so he has all this trauma and all this stuff because he's being pushed to do the music, and he was so good. And so he developed tinnitus. So basically he wasn't going deaf. It was just the ringing in his ears was so loud he couldn't hear. And what was happening is, at that point in time, if you were deaf, you couldn't like nobody was gonna take you serious. Like, there's deaf guys writing music. So Beethoven was deliberately just a jerk to people, so that nobody would try to talk to him, so that he didn't have to admit that he was deaf.
Wow.
And I remember once hearing a quote, and it was something to the effect of, music spoke to him through a deafened music spoke through a deafened ear to he who could no longer hear it.
Wow.
Or something to that effect. And I remember feeling like that was such a powerful thing to say, because music was like Beethoven's one thing. Like, and that one thing in him was more powerful to a guy who couldn't hear it than it was to like anybody else. Like, Mozart himself thought Beethoven was good shit. I mean, like, all of these great composers were not in competition with each other. A lot of them respected each other. Mm-hmm. And all he did was beat himself up, about it, like, especially growing up. So I look at people like Beethoven and I go, wow, some of the things that they've had to say about music, some of the things that they've written, it's just like, wow, this is incredible work. I think anybody who's ever played piano knows what Fur Elise sounds like. But Beethoven literally did not take that song very seriously. It was just a little thing he had like written for a girl. In fact, a fun fact people don't know is Fur Elise is not actually what the song is called. It was Fur Therese. His handwriting was so bad they couldn't actually read it. So they're pretty sure that it was for Therese or for Teresa or something to that effect. And his handwriting is just so bad. It was like, no, Fur Elise.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, you said that like it's a universal language. What I also equate to it is like, you can get stuff from people you never thought you would like. People you wouldn't necessarily like, you're gonna find yourself like relating to.
Yes.
Through the music. Like I said, Beethoven was this crotchety, angry old person, and like nobody wanted to be around him, but he wrote the most beautiful music around and people still came to listen. Mm-hmm. Mozart was like a giddy, playful little pervert whose favorite thing to do was to just rile people up. He'd make fart noises and would write like really inappropriate things and do inappropriate things, and it made people really uncomfortable back then. But then everybody would pay out the nose to go watch him perform because there was just nobody better.
Wow.
So like the way music works is like that. It's, again, to go back to Beethoven, it's like hypnotism. You don't have a choice. When you listen to it, it's like taking yourself into the mind of whoever wrote it. And it doesn't matter if you like them or not. You don't even get a choice. So it's, like you said, the universal language. It's fantastic. And it's one of my favorite things about being a musician, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of us musicians, I feel like, are misunderstood. Mm-hmm. But through our music, people understand us better.
Sure. What would you say the hardest thing is for you about being a musician?
The hardest thing.
Or even a hard thing. Maybe some nobody doesn't know.
Honestly, I feel like a lot of people will try to take advantage of you in a lot of different ways. And it's really hard once you've been screwed over to not just call it quits.
Yep. I think that's something I've told a lot of young musicians myself. When they're like, dude, how do you do this? It's like, you keep going. Okay, did you fail? Get the fuck back up and keep doing it anyway. The hardest thing about being a musician to me is not the talent. It's not getting things out, nothing. It is keep going. It is so exhausting, just like you're saying, yeah. Big one is, oh yeah, dude, you can totally come play. And then they don't want to pay you. Like, oh yeah, you can put a tip bucket out, or they want to pay you in like freaking like food or drinks or whatever. It's like, no, homie. That's all. Like, my time is money too. I think there's an old saying. It's like hauling $5,000 worth of gear to a $50 gig or something like that. Yeah, not it for me. Let's cycle back to Drive. We were talking about Drive a lot, but that's not your only song, right?
No.
You've got a couple of songs out, and you've got a ton, right, that you haven't released. Like, what, like 2 albums worth almost, maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
I have an album and an EP ready to go. Not out yet, but soon. Yes. Okay.
So, you want to tell us something about the struggles of what it takes to put out music? Because obviously, you know, we both know the story, right? What are some of the struggles people are going to have doing that? Like, what causes that to slow up?
Well, I'd say a big one is anxiety about putting stuff out.
Sure.
Feeling like, oh my gosh, is this good enough for the world to see? And another one is just getting everything together, because sometimes the other people involved in making, you know, the albums are, you know, sometimes, you know, take their time coming through and stuff like that. And, you know, sometimes the process is slow. And
yes, it is. Absolutely it is.
You can do everything in your power to try to make it happen, and then sometimes there's just things that
life happens, as they say, right? Yeah. I think for me, you know, having this music video, so I'm re-releasing a song, like an acoustic reimagining of Where My Demons Hide. That's the song getting the music video, because I've been doing this for like, it's been like a couple of years now. I've been trying to get a videographer, and I've had several, and they've all flaked on me or fallen through, or just, you know, we never really got together and did it. You know, there's always something, you know, but I feel like when you persevere, right, you keep going, you push through, the end product means so much more at the end.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Because you've put like your blood, sweat, and tears into it.
Yeah. So, do you have any advice that you would give somebody else maybe starting in this industry? Or maybe they've kind of already started and tried, but they're hitting a rut?
I would say, like we were talking about earlier, to just keep going. And there, especially at the beginning, I feel like it's hard to not listen to the haters or naysayers being like, you know, like, I don't know if you should do that, or but you know, you can't listen to that. And you also have to do things, I forgot who said this, but I heard recently, do things that you think are cool because you'll believe in them more.
And people will be able to tell.
Yeah.
Like, people can tell what's authentic and what's not.
So yeah, I think my advice would be, you know, if you feel like it's awesome, then like, who cares what anyone else thinks? Which is a hard thing, especially for me. Like, I'm constantly thinking, what are other people thinking about me? All this stuff, you know, but like, you just have to let that go. Yeah.
So the big thing is, you can't read the comment section all the time. Okay. that's going to be full of armchair politicians, couch potatoes, and basement dwellers. You know, everybody's got an opinion, and the thing about opinions is that they're not all valid.
Mm-mm.
Okay, an opinion is worth whatever the hell you let it be, and if you give people the power over you to, you know, take your feelings and shred them, then they're going to.
Totally.
They will, 100%.
I mean, like, I've had, like, people I thought were friends be in the comment section talking trash, and I'm like, whoa, like, the betrayal, you know? And I would say that's one of the hardest things is when you put your art into the world is that feedback. Especially the haters, like, it's hard.
Sure.
But to, like, be like, oh my gosh, I put so much into this, and, you know, oh, this one person doesn't like it. But who cares about that one person?
Yeah, there's like
you
200
know?
other people that loved it, man. Fuck that guy. I think, for me, I think one of the most interesting parts of being a musician that's really hard that people wouldn't think, or maybe they just don't think about, is once you reach a certain level, people don't really think of you the same way as they think of other people. Like, there's this weird disconnect with the average person where they don't put musicians or movie stars or actors or whatever you want to call they don't put them on the same level as everybody else. It's as if they assume all musicians and actors, first of all, are famous and that they're rich. And it's like, dude, it's a job. We do this the same way that you're doing your job, you know, and we're just doing something we love.
Yeah.
That's the difference. We found some way to do what we did, and it made sure there was something we loved doing. But there's this really weird pedestal people put you on, and that kind of affects the way people interact with you. You get a lot more fake people, or you get people who, if you were anybody else in the world, they would have said something really rude to your face. But because you're a musician or a model or a whatever, right? They go, well, I don't want them to dislike me. And it's like, well, why would it matter? You know what I mean? Yeah, I have found that one especially disheartening. And it shouldn't exist. There's no reason, you know?
Right. Because you just want people to feel comfortable and normal, like,
sure,
around you. But yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it gets real weird, I think, too. You know, again, I am like a nobody from nowhere kind of a scenario. Like, my backstory is that I mean, when I was 12, I lived in like a camper on the front of my uncle's front lawn because we were homeless and had nowhere to live, right? And so, like, I've never really left that mentality. Like, that's where I will always be. So when people are like looking up to me, or when I hear some of the comments made about me, you know, like being held in high esteem or whatever, like, I'm always the first one surprised. It's always weird to me because I don't look at myself that way. I'm always going to be that little kid, basically, not in a literal trailer park, but the little kid in the trailer park, so to speak.
But you're fucking awesome. That's why people
so
love
sweet.
you.
Well, and likewise, though, you know, I remember thinking, like, you know, when I decided to start this kind of like vlog series, you were like number one on the list. I was like, I got a new Clio. There's so many people that I was like, okay, I know these are gonna be good people. I got told this, but I was like, I know Clio's got the story I gotta tell.
Well, you know that I was totally down.
Absolutely. Yep. So here's a good one. One of my favorite questions to ask is, let's hear a funny story. Like, I don't care if it's from tour, if it's from performing anywhere, maybe it was in the studio. Like, let's hear a funny story. I feel like these bring everybody to the same level. Anytime I meet a musician or whatever, everybody's always like, well, what was that song about? I'm like, tell me a funny story, bro. Like, all the time.
Yes. My first thought is this one time we were playing a show with my like first band.
Okay.
And they were like, you know, don't bring your own amps or drums, like the venue has all of that.
God, that
We're
would be
like,
nice.
Okay. Well, the bass drum didn't have feet on it. And we were playing, I don't know how this happened, but while we were playing the show, because there was nothing propping it up, it literally started rolling off the stage. The drum was literally rolling off the stage, and it left my drummer just playing with the cymbals and whatnot in the snare, and there he was with just his feet just sticking out. So that was pretty hilarious. We all started laughing, and we finished the song.
Oh, that's talent right there.
But everyone was just like, oh my gosh, what is happening right now?
It just keeps going. That's a true the show must go on moment where it's like, well, half the shit just left the stage, but we going. We're here.
What's a funny story you have?
Oh boy. I was at this event. So where I live, there's a store called Hell Creek Music and More. And, shout out to Steve and Christy. They have been, honestly, some of the most amazing people to me. They were kind of like the reason I have this start that I did. They were my guiding light in a lot of stuff. And so they'd have these VIP events, and they'd bring all of these different musicians and stuff, right? And I remember they brought Elliot Rubinson, who was, at the time, he was the CEO and the owner of Dean Guitars, and unfortunately he passed away, and this was actually like right beforehand. So he came with Michelangelo Badio and like did this clinic, and then he came back maybe a month later or something like that and did a different clinic, but it was with Vinny Appice, and it was Craig Goldie. And then I don't remember who else they had. They had somebody else, but they had all these people. And so we're after the show, we're all hanging out, and this little kid comes up, and he comes up to Elliot and goes, "What instrument do you play?" And just without skipping a beat, Vinny just nudges him and goes, "He still plays the skin flute, paper thin walls." And this kid just goes, "Oh, okay," and just walks away. So Ellie didn't even get to answer this little kid. This kid's just sitting there, just walking away. And I'm sure he went and talked about playing skin flute or something, but so Vinny just outs the owner of his company playing the skin flute to this little kid. I thought that was a pretty funny story.
Oh my god.
Honestly though, like, Vinny's just hilarious. I think some of the funniest stories I have are just sitting and listening to him tell other funny stories. Hearing him talk about like touring with Ozzy, and like hearing like Ozzy throwing buckets of water on him, and then like him getting in trouble with Sharon over it and stuff like that. It always involves another musician with me, because I just feel like, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like just when we're not around other people, we're just total idiots. Just all the time. If Halloween was anything to judge off of, we're just idiots.
I love it.
Oh, I love it too. So is there anything else that you feel like you want to talk to the audience about? This is kind of the open forum area where I'm just going to say, what do you want to touch on? Is there any piece of advice, any story you want to tell, any, like, literally anything?
I would say just do what you love, and all the rest will follow.
I love that. Yeah. Be yourself authentically. That's the thing. And so I feel like if you do what you love, you will do it authentically, because if you stop doing what you love, or if you stop being authentic, you'll realize you're not loving what you're doing.
So true.
Yeah. I don't think there's ever been a moment where I was doing music or recording or performing where I wasn't like, yeah, this sucks. I hate this. God, I hate being a musician.
No, it's so fun. And so we've been working on a rock cover of an Eminem track, Lose Yourself.
Yes.
And it's been the most fun thing ever.
And serendipitous, to say the least, too. So we've been here, like 3-4 days at this point. We flew in, and constantly, it was like we were at like a couple of different like spots just throughout the town. And one of them was like this cover band that was playing this song. And then we went somewhere else later that night, and the song was playing. So it's like we kept hearing this song.
It was like meant to be.
Yeah, and so then I was like, it'd be kind of cool, just like let's do like a cover of this. And so yeah, when we were in the studio, like trying to figure out like what the hell what are we gonna do? It was like, well, let's try this out. What would this be like? And then we called some other people over. A good friend of ours, Al, and he came over and laid some stuff. So this whole thing is gonna be so cool. There's so many talented musicians that are just coming together out of the woodwork to create what I hope to be the most badass track yet.
Yes.
This is gonna be a lot of fun.
Like, I feel like all of our friends have a part in the track. Which is so cool. It feels almost like the same idea of these blood vials we just did.
Yes.
Where we have a drop of all our blood in it. We have all our blood in this song.
Absolutely.
And I love it. It's like almost the symbolism of our friendship.
Absolutely, yeah. So for those of you who don't know, being a real vampire, I wear a blood vial. And so the 4 of us all got together and we put all 4 of our blood in 4 different vials so that we can take each other with us anywhere we go.
I love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Clio, so very much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Cody.
Absolutely.